My boyfriend destroyed me at my birthday party, but he has no idea what's coming. So this happened last weekend and I'm still processing everything. I need to get this out because honestly, I'm going crazy keeping it all inside. I've been with my boyfriend Alex for almost 3 years now. We moved in together pretty fast, maybe too fast, but you know how it is when you're caught up in that honeymoon phase. He was different from other guys I dated, actually listened when I talked, remembered little things I mentioned, made me feel like I was the only person in the room. Looking back, I should have noticed the warning signs earlier. Alex was obsessed with how things looked from the outside. He'd stress about what car we drove, where we went for dinner, making sure our Instagram looked perfect. I thought it was just him being ambitious, but now I realize it was something else entirely. About 2 months ago, I started feeling weird. Super tired all the time. Queasy every morning, just completely off. I bought a pregnancy test mostly to rule it out since we'd been careful, mostly. But there it was. 2 bright pink lines staring back at me. I sat on that bathroom floor for like an hour just staring at the test. Part of me was terrified, but honestly, part of me was excited too. I'd always wanted kids eventually, and even though the timing wasn't perfect, it felt right. I told my best friend Sarah first. She came over for wine night, and when I stuck to water, she immediately knew something was up. She helped me think through everything: doctors, insurance, how to tell Alex. I decided to wait for my birthday party to announce it. We'd already planned this small gathering with our closest friends, and I thought it would be perfect to share the news with everyone at once. God, I was so naive. The weeks leading up to my birthday were strange. I was dealing with constant nausea while trying to hide it from Alex. He didn't seem to notice, which I figured was because he'd been working late a lot lately. He was distant, always on his phone, just different. I thought maybe work stress or something. My birthday fell on a Saturday. I spent all morning decorating while Alex went to get the cake, which somehow took him 3 hours. Whatever. Our friends started showing up around 6. Sarah and her boyfriend, our couple friends Jake and Marcus, my sister who was in town, and a few others, including this girl Emma who I'd known since college. Everything was going great. Good food, lots of laughs. Everyone seemed to be having fun. I had my announcement all planned out for after we did cake. Sarah kept catching my eye across the room and giving me these encouraging little smiles that made my heart race with nervous excitement. Around 9, Alex suddenly tapped his glass to get everyone's attention. My stomach dropped. Had he somehow figured out about the pregnancy? Was he going to steal my moment? He started this whole speech about how amazing I was, how grateful he felt to have me, all while staring directly into my eyes. Then he handed me this small, perfectly wrapped gift box with a silver ribbon. The whole room went quiet. People were pulling out their phones, thinking they were about to witness a proposal. I honestly thought the same thing for a split second and had this moment of panic about whether I should still announce the pregnancy if he was proposing. But when I opened the box, there wasn't a ring inside. It was a folded piece of paper. I opened it, confused, and read the words that are literally burned into my memory. I'm done with you. You're pathetic and I deserve so much better. Your stuff will be gone by Tuesday. I looked up at him, certain this had to be some kind of sick joke. But his whole face had changed. Cold, mean, almost like he was enjoying watching me process what was happening. Then he announced to the entire room that we were over, that it had been fun while it lasted, but he'd outgrown the situation. And then he actually laughed. Like, genuinely laughed. A few people in the room laughed too, clearly thinking this was some elaborate prank we'd planned together. But then Alex just turned around and walked out the front door without saying another word. The silence that followed was absolutely crushing. I stood there holding that note while everyone stared at me, waiting for someone to yell surprise. Or just kidding, but nobody did. Sarah was the first to move. She took the note from my hands, read it, and called him a complete piece of garbage. Then everyone started talking at once. Confusion, anger on my behalf, people asking what the hell just happened, and me. I just smiled. Not because I wasn't devastated, I absolutely was. Not because I wasn't humiliated beyond belief. Trust me, I was. But because in that moment, something clicked. Alex thought he'd just played the perfect power move. He thought he'd orchestrated this brilliant exit where he got to be in control and leave me completely destroyed in front of all our friends. But here's what he didn't know. He didn't know I was pregnant with his child. He didn't know that 2 weeks earlier, I'd found credit card statements hidden in his desk when I was looking for stamps. Hotel charges, expensive dinners, jewelry purchases that definitely never made their way to me. He didn't know I'd seen the text messages on his phone when he left it unlocked while showering messages to E with heart emojis. and plans to meet up when I was working late. And most importantly, he didn't know that I'm not the type of person who falls apart when someone tries to destroy me. I'm the type who gets strategic, so I smiled. I thanked everyone for coming. I assured them I was okay, I wasn't, and that they didn't need to worry, they did. I even served birthday cake, like we were celebrating the end of something instead of mourning. Emma left almost immediately after that, claiming she suddenly felt sick. Interesting timing, right? Don't worry, we'll definitely get to her later. The others stayed to help clean up, offering places to crash, shoulders to cry on, and jokes about helping me hide a body. Sarah insisted on sleeping over despite my protests that I was fine. Once everyone left and it was just us, I finally broke down. The pregnancy, the betrayal, the public humiliation, it all hit me at once. Sarah just held me and let me cry without trying to fix everything with empty reassurances. When I finally calmed down around 2 in the morning, I told her about the pregnancy. She wasn't even surprised, said she'd been wondering based on how I'd been acting. Then I showed her the credit card statements and the screenshots I'd taken of those text messages. We both knew exactly who E was, especially after Emma's hasty exit from the party. We stayed up until sunrise talking through everything. Sarah asked if I was going to tell Alex about the baby, but I was firm. He'd find out eventually, but on my terms, when I was ready. As for his affair and the lies, I wasn't going to stoop to his level with petty revenge, but I was definitely going to make sure the truth came out. Sarah looked at me with this mix of concern and admiration as I explained my thinking. She said I got this scary, determined look in my eyes sometimes. I just laughed, the first real laugh I'd had since opening that horrible box that night. Lying alone in bed for the first time in years with one hand on my still flat stomach, I made 2 promises. One to my unborn child that I'd provide a stable, loving home no matter what, and one to myself that I'd come out of this stronger than before. Alex thought he was writing the ending to our story with that cruel note. But if there's one thing I've learned from all those true crime podcasts I listen to, it's that the best revenge requires patience, planning, and a clear head. All 3 of which I had plenty of. So Monday morning hit like a truck. I called out sick from work for the first time in literally years and made a doctor's appointment to officially confirm the pregnancy. Around noon, while I was Googling tenant rights, since both our names were on the lease, I got a text from Alex, coming by at 7 to grab my stuff. Don't be there. The absolute nerve of this guy, right? I stared at that message for like 5 solid minutes before typing back a simple no. That's it. No explanation, no counteroffer, just a hard boundary. He immediately called. I immediately declined. Then I called Sarah, who basically assembled the Avengers. By 6:30, my apartment was packed with friends, Jake and Marcus, my sister, who decided to extend her visit, and a few others. A whole protective squad of people who actually cared about me. Alex showed up at exactly 7, and his face when he saw the welcoming committee was absolutely priceless. He tried to act all tough, demanding to know what was going on. But Jake, who's like 6'5" and built like a linebacker, just handed him one small suitcase with some clothes and toiletries. Jake told him calmly that he could get the rest of his stuff when he learned how to act like a decent human being and arranged a proper time. For now, this was all he was getting. Alex kept trying to catch my eye where I was sitting on the couch. Deliberately staying calm, he started whining about how ridiculous this was and how he just wanted his things. I finally looked directly at him and told him he should consider himself lucky I hadn't changed the locks yet, and we could discuss his belongings once I'd processed his lovely birthday surprise. He started to argue, but something in my expression must have shut him up. He grabbed the suitcase and left, but not before muttering something about me always needing drama. This from the guy who dumped me in front of 20 people. The irony was not lost on anyone. After he left, I cried again. Not for him, but for all the plans that now needed completely rewriting. For this baby who deserves so much better than a father capable of such cruelty. Next morning, I had the locks changed. Best $200 I ever spent. Now, about Emma, remember her sudden illness at the party? My suspicions were confirmed when Marcus texted me Tuesday night. He and Jake had seen Alex and Emma together a couple months ago, but weren't sure if it was innocent. He apologized for not saying anything sooner. It was like getting punched in the gut and vindicated at the same time. I'd known Alex was cheating, just not with whom. Finding out it was Emma, someone who'd eaten dinner at my table. Someone I'd considered a friend, that was a special kind of betrayal. Instead of confronting them immediately, I decided to wait and gather information. Maybe I watched too much true crime, but patience really is everything in situations like this. Over the next week, I focused on practical stuff. Got the pregnancy officially confirmed 12 weeks along. Talked to a lawyer about the lease and asset division. Froze our joint credit card and opened my own bank account. Basic protection measures. What I didn't do was tell anyone except Sarah about the pregnancy. It wasn't denial, it was strategy. I needed to get everything sorted first. 2 weeks after the birthday disaster, Alex texted asking to talk things through and get more of his stuff. I agreed to meet at a coffee shop near our place, public, daytime, my terms. He looked absolutely terrible, which I'll admit gave me a tiny bit of satisfaction. Unshaven, dark circles, wrinkled clothes. He immediately launched into this pathetic explanation about being unhappy and feeling trapped, thinking a clean break would be easier for everyone. I let him ramble for a while before simply asking if Emma was making him happy. You guys. The look on his face was pure deer-in-headlights panic. He stumbled through the most transparent denials I've ever heard. I cut him off and told him I knew about Emma, about the hotel charges on his hidden credit card, about the jewelry he'd bought her with money we supposedly needed for rent. I asked him to just be honest for once in his life. He deflated like a punctured balloon. Started with the "it's not what you think" line, but I shut that down immediately. I told him he could collect the rest of his things Saturday at 2 p.m. with Jake supervising. And after that, I didn't want to hear from him unless it was through a lawyer. His voice actually cracked when he repeated lawyer. He insisted we didn't need lawyers and could work everything out ourselves. I stayed completely calm even though my heart was racing and told him we were way past that point. He'd made his choice crystal clear at my birthday party, and I was just respecting it. As I stood to leave, he grabbed my wrist, not hard but desperately. He asked about the apartment, specifically how I was going to afford it alone. Said my job barely covered half the rent. And that's when it all clicked. The real reason for this meeting wasn't about closure or collecting his stuff. It was about money.c. What Alex didn't know or conveniently forgot was that I'd been covering way more than half the rent for the past year. His income had been drying up, his job more unstable than he'd admitted. He'd been living beyond his means, using my steady paycheck as a safety net while pretending to be the breadwinner. To our friends and apparently to Emma, I smiled sweetly and told him I'd figure it out, adding that, unlike some people, I actually save money instead of blowing it. On hotel rooms and jewelry for side pieces, the color completely drained from his face. He knew that I knew everything. I walked out of that coffee shop feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Not because I'd won anything, but because I finally saw Alex clearly for who he really was. A man who cared more about image than substance, who lied to seem more successful than he was, who bailed the moment I stopped serving his narrative. Saturday came and Jake supervised while Alex got more of his stuff. I spent the day at a prenatal yoga class, highly recommend for stress relief, by the way. When I came home, the apartment felt emptier, but somehow more mine. I spent that evening rearranging furniture and reclaiming my space. Over the next few weeks, I settled into a new routine. Work, doctor appointments, prenatal vitamins, careful budgeting. I wasn't just surviving. I was planning for a future that looked different, but not necessarily worse than what I'd imagined before. As for Alex and Emma, well, their fairy tale romance wasn't exactly thriving. Through the grapevine, okay? Through Marcus, who heard from his roommate who works at the restaurant where they kept having public arguments. I learned that Emma was getting increasingly unhappy with her prize. Apparently, Alex had painted himself as way more financially stable than he actually was. Shocking, right? The first real crack showed about a month after our coffee meeting. I was at Target comparing prices on prenatal vitamins when I literally bumped carts with Emma. She looked startled, then guilty, then defiant in rapid succession. She said hi awkwardly and told me I looked good. I replied that she looked exhausted, and she really did. Same stressed expression Alex had worn at the coffee shop. An uncomfortable silence stretched until she blurted out that Alex had told her we were already separated. When they started hooking up, according to her story, he'd claimed we were basically done, just living together until the lease ended. I raised an eyebrow but said nothing. She stumbled through what might have been an attempt at justification, saying she wouldn't have gotten involved if she'd known we were still together. I finally told her it didn't matter now. She had him and should enjoy it. As I turned to leave, she called after me saying he wasn't what she'd expected, that he'd promised things he couldn't deliver. I looked back at her, this woman I'd once considered a friend, now looking small and diminished by her own choices. I simply told her that sounded like a personal problem I couldn't help with. About 6 weeks after the birthday party, I started showing just a tiny bump, but unmistakable if you were looking. I decided it was time to stop hiding the pregnancy. I told my boss first, who who was incredibly supportive and offered flexible hours for my third trimester. Then I gradually told other friends and family. Word travels fast in social circles. I knew it would eventually reach Alex, but I wasn't hiding anymore. This baby was happening with or without his involvement. 7 weeks post-breakup, when I hit the 16-week mark, I got a series of increasingly frantic texts from Alex. Is it true? Are you pregnant? Why didn't you tell me? We need to talk right now. Answer your phone. This involves me too. I didn't respond to any of them, not out of spite, but because I genuinely didn't know what to say yet. I needed time to process this new phase and decide what role, if any, I wanted him to have in our child's life. The texts kept coming, getting more desperate. I have rights. You can't keep my kid from me. Call me back or I'm coming over. That last one made me finally respond. I told him not to show up at my apartment uninvited, that I'd call the police if necessary, and that I'd contact him when I was ready to discuss this like adults. He backed off for exactly 2 days. Then, just like I mentioned in my original post, he showed up. It was just after 11 p.m. last night, and guys, he was completely wasted. I was in bed around 11 p.m., reading this pregnancy guide and taking notes. Yes, I'm that person now. When I heard a car door slam outside, then heavy footsteps on the walkway, followed by aggressive banging on my door, not knocking, full-on pounding. Open up. I know you're in there. We need to talk about this baby. Alex's voice was completely slurred but unmistakable. My heart started racing as I sat there frozen, not sure what to do. Call the cops? Text Jake. Hide under the covers and hope he goes away. Then I heard something that made the decision for me, crying. Alex was outside my door, drunk and sobbing, switching between angry demands and pathetic pleading. He kept saying he'd made a huge mistake, begging me to let him in, insisting it's my kid too. Despite everything he'd put me through, some tiny part of me felt, not sympathy exactly, but recognition. His grand exit plan, his new life with Emma, his escape from pathetic me, none of it was working out like he'd imagined. Reality had finally smacked him in the face, and it looked like an unexpected pregnancy and financial disaster. I got out of bed, threw on a robe, and walked to the door carefully. I didn't open it, but I spoke through it, telling him he was wasted and needed to go home. We could talk tomorrow when he was sober. He yelled that he needed to see me now, needed to know if it was real. If we were actually having a baby together, I confirmed through the closed door that yes, I was pregnant 18 weeks now. And yes, it was his. But this wasn't how we were going to discuss it, and he needed to leave. There was this loud thud against the door, his head or fist, I couldn't tell. Then he mumbled something so quietly I almost missed it. Emma had dumped him, said he wasn't who she thought he was, that he'd lied about everything. I couldn't help but comment that it sounded familiar. He let out this hollow laugh with zero humor in it. He admitted he'd screwed up everything and begged me to let him in, saying he just wanted to talk. I took a deep breath, one hand automatically going to my small bump protectively. I refused to let him in that night, but I offered to meet him the next morning at that little cafe on Park Street at 10 a.m. I made it crystal clear that if he was late or showed up drunk again, that would be it, no more chances. He was quiet for so long I thought maybe he'd passed out against my door. Then, very softly, he agreed. Tomorrow at 10, he promised he'd be there. I heard his unsteady footsteps walking away, then a car engine starting. At least he'd called a ride instead of driving drunk. One responsible decision out of many terrible ones. As I climbed back into bed, my phone buzzed with a text from him. I'm sorry for everything. The party, the note, tonight. I'll figure out how to fix this. I didn't respond. Alex had always been good with words. That's what got us into this mess in the first place. I needed actions now, especially with a baby coming. Did I still love him? No. That died the moment he humiliated me in front of 20 people. Did I hate him? Not anymore. Hate takes energy I needed for other things. I would meet him tomorrow. I would listen. I would set boundaries. And I would decide what happened next based on what was best for me and my child, not his needs or wants. The next morning, I honestly expected him to be but there he was at 9:55 a.m., looking like he'd been hit by a truck. Bloodshot eyes, same wrinkled clothes from the night before, and this nervous energy that made him constantly bounce his leg under the table. First thing I noticed, he'd already ordered me a regular latte. Thoughtful, I guess. Except I've been drinking herbal tea since getting pregnant because coffee makes me sick now. Small detail, but it pretty much summed up Alex making assumptions about what I needed without actually paying attention. The meeting was a lot. He started with apologies. So many apologies. Sorry for the birthday disaster. Sorry for cheating. Sorry for the financial lies. Sorry for showing up drunk. It was like watching someone frantically fill out a damage control checklist. I just sipped my chamomile tea, ordered to replace the unwanted latte, and let him exhaust himself. There's something oddly powerful about staying silent when someone expects you to respond. You know, when he finally ran out of steam, I asked the only question that actually mattered. What exactly did he want? He seemed thrown by how direct I was, started rambling about wanting to be involved, doing the right thing, and maybe we could work things out between us. I actually laughed at that last part, not meanly. Just genuinely surprised that he thought getting back together was even remotely on the table. The conversation got real when I explained how things would work going forward. I told him I'd already talked to a lawyer about child support and custody arrangements. His face when I mentioned the lawyer again, priceless. Like watching someone realize they're drowning when they thought they were just getting their feet wet. I made it clear that I wasn't keeping him from his child. But trust had to be rebuilt from scratch. That meant scheduled visits, financial responsibility, and consistently showing up, not just when it was convenient or would look good on social media. He kept trying to steer the conversation back to us as a couple, and I kept redirecting to us as co-parents. Eventually, he got frustrated, saying I was being cold and calculating. I pointed out that cold and calculating was exactly what his birthday note had been. The difference was I was being strategic to protect our child, while he'd done it to protect his ego. That shut him up pretty effectively. Before I left, I handed him a folder with everything: ultrasound, photos, due date, doctor information, along with what my lawyer had put together regarding child support. I told him to review it, get his own lawyer if needed, and let me know his thoughts once he'd processed everything. As I stood to leave, he grabbed my wrist again. Seriously, what is it with the wrist grabbing? And asked if Emma knew about the baby. I told him that wasn't my information to share, but I hadn't gone out of my way to tell her either. Then I gently but firmly removed his hand and walked out. Over the next few weeks, things calmed down. I focused on setting up the nursery, which basically meant turning half my bedroom into baby headquarters. Crib from IKEA that took me and Sarah 3 hours to assemble. Those instructions need subtitles. I swear. Changing table from Facebook Marketplace, and this adorable mobile with little animals that my mom shipped from across the country. I'd been saving money aggressively and picked up some freelance graphic design work on weekends. Nothing glamorous, but it helped fill the financial gap. Alex's contribution had left. My mom also sent some money to help, which was both sweet and a little uncomfortable. I've always prided myself on being independent. Meanwhile, Alex was processing. He'd text occasionally asking about the baby or requesting photos of nursery progress. I'd respond with facts, but kept emotional distance. Sometimes he'd try to get personal, asking if I was dating anyone, nope, or mentioning some movie we used to watch together. I'd redirect every time. Then came the incident. Yes, it deserves capital letters. I was at Target on a Saturday afternoon, stocking up on diapers. Apparently you can never have too many, according to every parenting blog ever, when I literally collided carts with Emma. Again, what are the actual odds? This time was completely different though. She wasn't awkward or defensive. She actually seemed relieved to see me. She immediately asked how I was feeling, how the pregnancy was going, all while looking genuinely concerned. Then she said something that totally caught me off guard. She apologized. Not a quick, uncomfortable, sorry, not sorry, but a real, thoughtful apology acknowledging the pain she'd caused. She explained that Alex had fed her the same story he'd apparently used on multiple women, that we were basically over. Just going through the motions, that I was holding him back from his potential. She'd found out he was seeing yet another woman while they were together. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. We ended up getting coffee, herbal tea for me, and having this totally surreal conversation about the man we both now saw clearly for who he really was. Not evil, just deeply insecure and needing constant validation. Willing to lie to get it as we were saying goodbye. Emma mentioned casually that Alex had been fired from his job 2 weeks earlier. She thought I should know since it might affect child support. I thanked her for the heads up and drove home. Processing this new information, I wasn't happy about Alex losing his job. It complicated everything, but I appreciated knowing that evening. While I was folding tiny baby clothes and listening to a true crime podcast, Old Habits, my doorbell rang. I checked the peephole, always check the peephole, and saw Alex standing there. Sober this time, but looking rough. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. He started talking immediately, asking if I'd heard about his job, saying it wasn't his fault, that he was being set up. Then he asked if I'd seen Emma recently, sounding suspicious. I told him yes, we'd run into each other at Target. His face did this weird thing where it tried to look casual but just looked constipated instead. He asked what we'd talked about, and I simply said, you, mostly. He did not like that answer. Then he started getting agitated, saying we were probably conspiring against him, that everyone was turning on him when he was just trying his best in a difficult situation. Reminded him that he'd created this situation with choices he'd made, and playing victim wasn't going to work with me. That's when he completely broke down. Not dramatically, not movie-style tears. Just crumpled. Said his life was falling apart. No job, no girlfriend, an apartment he could barely afford, and a baby coming that he wasn't prepared for. For a brief moment, I felt that old urge to comfort him, to fix things. But then I remembered those cold words in that birthday note. You're pathetic and I deserve better. Instead of comfort, I offered clarity. I told him he had two paths forward: continue the pity party and lose everything, or step up, take responsibility, and start rebuilding. For the first time since this entire mess started, Alex actually listened. No interruptions, no excuses, just listening. So the big news, the baby is here. Little Maya arrived 7 weeks ago, weighing 6 pounds 12 ounces with the most ridiculous amount of hair I've ever seen on a newborn. She definitely got Alex's stubborn chin, which is honestly the only thing of his I'm not annoyed she inherited. Labor was, well, let's just say all those birth videos I watched on YouTube did absolutely nothing to prepare me for reality. 28 hours. 28 hours of my body basically staging a revolt against me. The crazy thing is, during those endless hours of contractions, I kept thinking about how much I'd changed since that nightmare birthday party 9 months ago. I went from being the woman standing there in shock with a breakup note to literally bringing a whole human into the world. Life really doesn't mess around, does it? Alex was actually at the hospital for the birth, which shocked pretty much everyone, including me. He showed up with this enormous stuffed elephant that seriously would not fit through the door of my room. Like, where exactly did he think we were going to put this thing in my tiny apartment? But he stayed through everything. The waiting, the very unglameful parts, all of it. Sarah was my absolute hero, though. When I was convinced I couldn't do it anymore and was basically having a breakdown, she was right there telling me I was already doing the impossible. Alex mostly stood around awkwardly, checking his phone and occasionally asking if I needed water. Which, I mean, at least he was trying. When Maya finally arrived and they put her on my chest, I had this moment of complete clarity. All the pain, the betrayal, the uncertainty, it all led to her. And honestly, I wouldn't change a single thing about this journey. Alex cried when he held her for the first time. Not pretty movie tears, but this awkward, snotty kind of crying where he kept trying to stop but couldn't. It was probably the most genuine emotion I'd seen from him in our entire 3-year relationship. The first few weeks at home were absolutely brutal. Constant diaper changes, feeding struggles, and a level of exhaustion I didn't know was humanly possible. My mom flew in for 2 weeks, which was both amazing and exhausting in its own way. She kept rearranging my kitchen because apparently my organization system makes no sense whatsoever. Sorry, Mom, but who puts mixing bowls with the plates? That's just chaos. Alex has been surprisingly consistent with visits, not like a live-in dad, but he comes by 3 times a week on schedule. Sometimes he brings actually useful stuff like formula or Chinese takeout. Other times he shows up with completely impractical baby clothes that are admittedly adorable. Last week, it was a tiny denim jacket for a 6. I didn't have the heart to tell him she outgrow it. Before she can even sit up, our co-parenting dynamic is still a work in progress. We have tense moments, especially when he's late or cancels because of work drama. But we also have surprisingly normal moments. Like when he noticed I was struggling with nursing issues and actually Googled solutions, then showed up with the right supplies. If you know, you know. Money-wise, things have stabilized. Alex pays child support on time so far, and I've been doing remote social media work part-time. Not making bank, but keeping the lights on. My landlord even let me renew the lease solo without any hassle, which felt like a huge win. The apartment feels completely different now. All of Alex's stuff is gone, replaced by baby gear that somehow takes up 3 times the space. I repainted the main room, this soft blue-gray that makes me smile every time I walk in. It's wild how much your environment affects your mental state. I still run into Emma occasionally. Small town problems. It's way less awkward now, more like seeing a random acquaintance than someone who helped destroy your life. Last time I saw her, she was with some guy who kept calling her sweetheart every 5 seconds. She seemed happy, if a little forced about it. I genuinely hope it works out for her. Alex is still figuring his life out. His new job isn't going great, according to Sarah, who heard from Jake, who plays poker with Alex's roommate. Gotta love small-town gossip networks. He moved into this depressing studio that he constantly complains about. Sometimes when he visits Maya, I catch him looking around my place with this expression I can't quite read. Maybe nostalgia mixed with regret. The weirdest development has been Alex's apparent self-improvement journey. He mentioned he's seeing a therapist now, which is insane considering this is the guy who once told me therapy was paying someone to validate your problems. He's reading parenting books and joined some dad group online. Sometimes I wonder if aliens swapped him out with a better version. My own life has taken some interesting turns too. Remember how I mentioned remote work? That actually came through Marcus, who connected me with his girlfriend's marketing company. The work is engaging, the people are cool, and most importantly, I can do it while Maya naps, when she decides napping is on the agenda, which is not nearly often enough. And then there's David. Yes, there's a David now. He's the guy who delivers my grocery orders. And honestly, at first, I barely noticed him beyond thanks and just leave them by the door because, hello, new mom zombie mode. But he started leaving little notes with my deliveries recommendations from other parents he delivers to. Or sometimes just dad jokes that would make me actually laugh out loud. One day when I was particularly frazzled, hadn't showered in 3 days, pretty sure there was baby food in my hair, he dropped off my order and offered to help carry the heavy stuff to my kitchen. I hesitated because stranger danger and all that. But something about him felt safe. While he was putting away groceries, we started talking. Turns out he's finishing his master's in education, delivering groceries to pay for school. He has a nephew he babysits regularly, which explains why he didn't run screaming from my disaster zone apartment. We exchanged numbers in case there were delivery issues. We both knew that was complete BS, but it was a comfortable fiction. We've been texting and he's stopped by for coffee a few times. It's nothing serious, I'm in no rush to jump into anything new. But it's nice talking to an adult who doesn't want to discuss sleep schedules or diaper brands. Last week when Alex came for his visit, David was just leaving. The look on Alex's face was ... complicated. Later, he casually asked who that guy was. I kept it vague, partly because there's not much to tell yet, and partly because it's really none of his business. He made a few comments about moving on pretty fast before seeming to catch himself. Sarah thinks I should go for it with David, but I'm taking everything day by day. After everything that happened, I've learned that rushing never ends well. Plus, Maya is my main focus right now. Dating as a single mom is a completely different game with rules I'm still figuring out. Speaking of Sarah, she's been my lifeline through all of this. When I'm overwhelmed and convinced I'm failing at motherhood, she shows up with iced coffee, my one true love. Finally, back in my life now that breastfeeding is going better and reminds me that all new parents feel this way. She takes Maya for a few hours sometimes so I can shower, nap, or just stare at the wall in blessed silence. Yesterday was actually my birthday. 1 year since the box that changed everything. Instead of dwelling on that memory, I had a small gathering at my place. Sarah and her boyfriend, Jake and Marcus, my sister, and a few other close friends. Alex stopped by briefly to drop off a gift. A surprisingly thoughtful necklace with Maya's birthstone, but didn't stay. As I looked around my little apartment filled with people who genuinely care about me, at my daughter sleeping peacefully in her bouncer, at the life I built from the ruins of what I thought I wanted. I felt something unexpected. Gratitude. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe David will become something meaningful, or maybe he'll just be a sweet chapter in this story. Maybe Alex will keep growing into a decent co-parent, or maybe he'll backslide into old patterns. Maybe I'll stay in this apartment forever, or maybe someday I'll find a house with a backyard for Maya to play in. What I do know is that I'm not the same woman who stood holding that note at her birthday party last year. That woman was broken but determined. This woman is rebuilt, stronger in all the places that cracked . So I guess if there's any lesson in this long, messy story, it's that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you can lead to the best version of yourself. Not immediately, not easily, but eventually. P.S. If you're wondering what happened to that giant stuffed elephant Alex brought to the hospital, it's currently serving as a makeshift baby-proofing barrier to keep Maya from rolling off my bed when I need to set her down for 30 seconds to use the bathroom. So I guess it found its purpose after ALLPPS. For those asking what happened to the infamous breakup note, I kept it. It's in a memory box in Maya's closet along with her hospital bracelet. First curl of hair, and the pregnancy test that started this whole journey. Someday, when she's old enough, I'll tell her the whole story. Not to burden her, but because it's part of her history too. Thanks for following this crazy journey, Reddit. You've been better therapy than I could have afforded.